The Hero of Warriors, our non-canon canon entry, here fixing the timeline and turning it into one line of time once more. We only have one game and no manga, and said game is Hyrule Warriors. This will be our 8th entry into our adventure through the Zelda timeline. Now, before we start talking about the game, let's reiterate what we're doing here. We will be going over how JoJo had characterized warriors in their comic Linked Universe, a comic series that follows 9 Links answering the question, what would happen if all the Links had to adventure together? I'll be going over every link in the comic, and you can catch episode 0, where I explain what we are doing here in more detail down below. I'll also be putting the next episode down below as well. Hyrule Warriors being our non-canon game, but canon in this comic, the story starts with a mysterious woman named Seeeecret waging war against Hyrule as Princess Zelda and the Hylian army are engaged in battle. Outside Hyrule Castle, a trainee rushed out to aid in the battle. Said trainee is named Link, and we soon discover he possesses the Triforce of Courage. After the castle falls, Zelda is missing! Link and Impa search for her, soon meeting Sheik, who we learn possesses the Triforce of Wisdom, as well as many heroes from across time itself. Darunia, Princess Ruto, Agatha, Midna, and Fi join the fray. Also, shocker, Sheik is Zelda. Woo! After obtaining the Master Sword, Link and the gang, along with a woman named Lana, go off to face Seeeecret, who has a very strange taste in architecture. Why? But we defeat her, and Lana eventually puts everything back to normal. What? Ganon? When did you get here? So, during this, Seeeecret was helping Ganon come back, and Link getting the Master Sword was the last piece in this puzzle. Oops. Lovely. And he's back now, summoning Girhim and Zan to aid him in his quest. Now Lana has to re-summon everybody to defeat Ganon's armies, as well as Ganon himself. During the final battle, Link, Zelda, and Lana all finally obtain the Triforce, defeating Ganon, and with Link and Zelda's help, sealing Ganon away in the Master Sword once more. This game's story is very short and sweet, and it's fun. From here on out, we will be referring to Link as his hero title, the Hero of Warriors. Design. The Hero of Warriors wears his classic green tunic, gray pants, brown boots, armor on his shoulder, his classic green hat, and blue gloves along with a bright royal blue scarf with red designs. Everything seems to be the same except for the fact that Wars lost his hat. Something else is the fact that he has a burn scar on his left hand from Volga the dragon. Warriors is normally seen in-game taking out large numbers of enemies, and in Linked Universe he is also seen doing so. In Magic Sword, it was only himself and Hyrule, but the two took out an entire enemy camp. He is seen only using his sword as well as the fire rod occasionally, which are 2 of his main weapons in the game. He is also seen multiple times in the background looking after Epona. Considering he was one of the Links with an Epona, it's sweet seeing him with her. Lastly, we do see him pulling a dagger on time when startled, meaning he always has some form of weapon on him at all times. The Hero of Warriors is confident to the point of coming off as narcissistic. He's bold and takes command, he's able to quickly understand a situation and tends to jump to conclusions, but not without reason. He's fast thinking, skills make him a real threat as he is able to break everything down and think up plans, coming up with a strategy that will work, but at the same time he makes jokes and bets, as well as likes to mess with the others when the opportunity arises. He is able to separate when it's needed to be serious and when it's time to joke around. Let's start off with talking about how he sees his equipment, namely the Master Sword. He's only shown saying one thing about the sword, and that is, "With that blade you feel invincible," with Twilight saying, "That's a dangerous way of thinking," and Wars says, in response, "Almost cost me my life," which shows that he jokes about things he's messed up on in the past, as well as shows that he understands the blade is extremely strong. Talking about the fire rod, we haven't seen a lot with him using it yet, but after what we have seen, he really does enjoy it. Other than that, he doesn't really talk about his equipment, but he does call rings shackles, showing that he isn't one to be tied down, and also shows off his problems that have arisen with a very specific sorceress named Sia. Let's break down Warrior's personality a bit more. His confidence is one of his most defining traits. He stands strong in the face of evil and won't back down. When facing Dink for the first time, the two make eye contact. Without speaking, they both knew this was going to be a battle. But after Dink fled, Warriors was the only one to notice Dink wasn't actually trying. And when Dink attacks the chain once more while they were walking through the forest, it wasn't just a random setup. Warriors planned this as a trap. The marching order was meticulously planned, placing himself and Sky at the front, leading the others. Each little group is spaced a few yards apart, so if they were ambushed, they would be prepared and unable to be surrounded. With Sky walking in the front with Warriors, the fact that the Master Sword glows when Dink is near, this gives him the perfect line of sight to see if Dink is approaching. After them, in the next group, is Twilight riding Epona. Most of the time in the comic, Twi isn't riding her, but in this moment, he is. This would be so if something happens, he could get to whoever needs help when need be. The next group is Wind, Wild, and Four. Wind is the youngest, which makes sense, he is in the largest group. Wild is losing weapons rapidly, meaning they don't want him fighting unless if need be. And lastly, Four, being the smallest of the group, as well as being the responsible one, making this a well-rounded team. Then we have Legend walking alone. He is the most experienced in the group, as well as the fact he is the fastest with his Pegasus boots. He walks in another, if they need help, go to them, location. And lastly, we have Hyrule and Time. Last tends to be the most dangerous group to walk in. When getting attacked, they are most likely to not be able to get any support from the people in the lead, which means Hyrule and Time holding up the rear of the chain shows a level of respect and understanding that they can handle themselves. And what happens when they get attacked? They start from the back. Legend quickly makes his way back as intended ahead before Dink makes his way past the group of three. When Twilight and Epona appear, making even more noise, this leads to Warriors and Sky, who are standing ready, knowing that their plan had worked perfectly, only for Dink to realize the plan as Sky creates a skyward strike and he jumps at the last minute and creates a portal to escape into another era. Warriors was confident in his original plan, which worked. Then, when this one was created, he was proven right again. His confidence comes from his ability to deduce the situation and build a plan around knowledge he knows. Another thing about Warriors is how he keeps track of the others. He is seen to be somewhat of the right-hand man to Time. He takes care of anything Time cannot, as well as looks after the others. Warriors is seen holding Wind when he is injured, checking on Wild when he was hit, as well as multiple times being the only one to talk to Time and ask him if he's alright throughout the comic. First time being when Time was too quiet in Hero's Legacy, as well as in Sunset, where Time was staying up, not sleeping. Warriors came in and asked him if he was okay by name, snapping him out of his thoughts and bringing him back. He's reliable and always willing to look out for the younger heroes. We also see him letting Wind use his scarf as a blanket at one point in time. He's always helping out when need be, like making Wild's new sword. He's been using the fire rod while forging it. And later on, when he helps Four finish the sword, the chapter before, we see him going to get Legend, who clearly doesn't leave Twilight's side, meaning he doesn't force the others to do things if they seem unwilling. Now, what is he like when he's not on patrol or trying to help the others? Well, he is kind of a little stinker. Warriors tends to start problems like stealing Wild's Vey clothes to mess with him, or when he makes bets with Legend, or jokes about how Hyrule and himself took down an entire camp. He likes to make jokes and make fun of the others. He is one of, if only a member of the chain who can go back and forth with Legend with wit, even though he still loses, but they can still bounce off each other. Everyone else either gives up or fails with the banter. This is to the point where Legend refuses to let Warriors see him in his rabbit form in fear of the vain captain and how he would never stop teasing him. One last thing to talk about before we go into how he sees the rest of the chain. Warriors tends to be the one to start conversations, but barely keeps talking throughout them. Unless if it's to bring someone else into the conversation, he tends to just listen and watch, paying attention to everyone. Speaking of the chain, Warriors is one of the most social characters in the chain. He's seen talking with, or at least interacting with, pretty much everyone so far. Starting with Sky, he isn't seen messing with Sky in any way, but he is seen working with him. When the chain splits up during Divine Dark Reflections, he was probably the one who put the teams together. He took Sky with him as well as Hyrule. He knew he would be running into enemies, as well as the fact that he wanted to find the enemy camp before regrouping, meaning that he wanted to fight alongside Sky and Hyrule, making this his ideal team. There's also the fact that the crucial part of another plan he had with Sky was back when Dink attacked the chain in Shady Escape, which relied on Sky using the Skyward Strike on Dink, knowing it wouldn't affect the rest of the chain and passing through them harmlessly. These show that Warriors respect Sky. He doesn't mess with him like the others do, he just has respect. This also shows that he doesn't mess with someone that could be considered an easy target, like how Legend messes with Sky. He only goes after the ones who can bicker back. So because this is the Hero of Warriors character analysis, I also get to talk about the strategy. Little side note, the strategy behind teaming up who with who in Divine Dark Reflections, we already talked a little bit about Warriors, Sky, and Hyrule, but let's hold off on that for a minute for Hyrule's part, because we're talking about time and wind. They're pretty much put together because oldest and youngest tend to work as a good combo. Old, slow, and wise combined with young and fast tend to be a good balance. With Legend and Wild, well, we kind of saw the reason why. It was so Legend could find out a weapon for Wild, but also the fact that the two are polar opposites. One wants to climb that mountain in the distance and the other one wants a map. They will most likely be where base is, because neither will end up moving. And lastly, Four and Twilight. They are both non-problematic members of the chain. They don't cause problems, they tend to solve them. Having them interact with the townspeople and gather information means that they are best for the job. Now, Hyrule probably doesn't want to go into town. Wind gets excited easily. Time is intimidating. Sky would be a good choice, but he's on the murder duty with Warriors and Hyrule. Legend is Legend. Wild is, well, Wild, which leaves Twilight and Four as the best options to gather information. Back to what we were doing. With Four, he doesn't mess with him, he respects him. Warriors helps with the sword for Wild, and that's about it. Also considering the fact that he had Four in the group to fight the Lizalfos and not be on back row duty also means that he respects him in his fighting skills as well. Lastly, he was also able to notice that Four wanted to fix Wild's sword and figured out when and where Four would be able to jump in with Wind and Hyrule to help him finish said sword. Which means he pays attention. He really pays attention to everybody. For Time, Warrior seems to be his right-hand man of sorts, and the two tend to talk strategy and plan ahead for things. Time listens to Warrior's plans, and the respect goes both ways. Warriors is also the only one to actively keep an eye on Time's mental state. He asks questions and supports him the best he can. Now with Legend, the two tend to butt heads. Warriors makes jokes and pokes fun at Legend, who reacts with doing the same back. The two tend to banter and make bets, able to go toe-to-toe with one another. But it's not all them messing with the other. They do know when to turn it off and talk to one another, like when Warriors defeated Dink for the first time and Legend comments on how he actually got him. Or in Regroup, where Legend shows clear discomfort and Warriors backs off. Warriors also respects Legend as a warrior, placing him in the only solo person group during Shady Escape, showing that he knows that Legend can handle himself. As well as in The Shadow, where he puts Legend in the group there to back people up and watch the shadow, showing that he puts his faith in Legend being able to watch the situation and make his own decisions. We also see in The Shadow that in that group, Legend is the one leading the little three-man group, meaning as much as he doesn't want to be a leader, Legend kinda is one. We also see him in the planning group during this chapter as well, and Warriors listens to his ideas, showing the respect between them. Going on to Hyrule, the two get along well. They are seen teaming up often, as well as we see the two at what it looks like a tavern. They work well together, and Warriors doesn't care if Hyrule isn't a knight. He sees him as someone who can handle himself and someone who is able to stand with the rest of the chain no matter the background. So, something of note here is the fact that I started to count for how much Warriors has to deal with the Downfall Duo's BS. He can handle them alone, but together, no. I started the count because I just kind of started noticing little times where, like, they would do something and he would have to deal with their crap, and I got 4. And in this new update, we'll have to make it 5. But Downfall Duo doesn't end up in the same room as Warriors often enough for more, but clearly that might change. Hopefully. Moving on to Twilight, the two of them work well together. They are both members of the chain who work alongside Time often. Both of their opinions tend to be what Time takes into consideration very often, and they both hold a left and right hand position, showing that they respect one another greatly. But outside of combat, they poke fun at one another, and Warriors loves to mess with Twilight with his dog puns. We have only seen a few, but they don't seem like they are going to stop anytime soon. They like to joke around and have fun, but when things get serious, they understand what they need to do. Talking about Wind, they don't get seen together often, but when they do, it's Warriors keeping an eye out for the younger hero. He explains things to him as well as quietly tries to make sure he is safe when in battle. We also see him carrying him as well as putting his scarf over the younger hero. Lastly, Wild. Wild doesn't listen to Warriors often, but when he does, it's for a plan. Like when Wind, Legend, and Wild were all off watching on the sidelines. They were meant to jump in if someone needed help, and in the end, Wild was the only one to jump in to help someone. Warriors trusts Wild's judgment, but also knows said judgment could be flawed. When away from battle, Warriors is able to joke around and mess with Wild. He's the one who started the stealing of the Vey clothes, showing that he likes to mess with him. We also see them have more serious moments, like when they ran into the Yiga tribe member. But other than that, they will work together even though they're probably not the best to team up together. Secrets. The main things I found about Wars is, well, the events of his game, being that he has met multiple people from across time, meaning if they run into said people, then he will most likely be recognized as well. They know each other. On another note, there's also the events with Sia and Lana, but honestly, I think he just doesn't want to talk about his woman problems, or the fact that the entire war happened because Sia really wanted to get into his pants. Now, I've seen a lot of people talking about Warriors being the one to die, and the main reason I have found behind this is because of the fact that he's the only uncanon Link in the chain. Does that make him the weak Link? I don't really think so. I'm gonna be honest, narrative-wise, I'm not really seeing anything. No foreshadowing, no death flags, so false alarm, guys. I hope I'm not wrong about that. Unless if you have any ideas, I would love to hear them in the comments below, but other than that, I haven't really seen anything. So yeah, we're just gonna move on to final thoughts now.
The hero of Warriors is a reliable and responsible member of the chain. He's known for being confident and tends to be seen as vain, even though he isn't narcissistic. Warriors is seen being the strategist, as well as seen as someone who can take on any challenge. He is even seen taking on the challenge of bantering with Legend, but he knows his limits and knows when to stop. Warriors cares deeply about the chain, looking out for the younger heroes as well as keeping an eye on their leader. He notices things that the others don't, like when Time was clearly upset. He would step in and check in on Time. He knows what it's like to have many lives in his hands, and he understands the stress, so he'll try his best to be there for them. We know he doesn't have family, so he states he cannot imagine what Time is going through during the events of Sunset, but he'll be there for him nonetheless. We also know Warriors tries to keep things light-hearted, trying to cheer up the others or try to keep their minds off the bad, moving the conversation to something closer to home. Warriors may have a bit of a mean streak with bickering and bantering, but he jokes around and he really does care. This shows a level of maturity not a lot of the others have, but also a level of understanding of what needs to be done. In the end, his ability to adapt and plan ahead, making strategies that will work, as well as keeping an eye on the other members, shows Warrior's ability to be sharp like a blade and wit, but also soft like the scarf he wears, protecting those around him with the valor he holds.
thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video. This came together surprisingly easy. I think I had nailed down Warrior's personality very quickly, where some I had to reread the comic multiple times to fully understand it. I don't know if it's the fact that it was easy to figure out, or I'm actually getting better at this, or the fact that I have read this comic over 100 times now. I don't know. And I don't know if I want to know the answer to that. Anyways, next time we'll be doing our final episode, The Hero of the Wild! Yay! That's crazy, we only have one left. I honestly didn't think we would make it to Twilight's video, but seriously, thank you all for supporting this series. I've been having a lot of fun making it, and you guys are literally the reason we have made it this far. So thank you again to all of you for watching. And also, thank you JoJo for this amazing comic. If you guys want to read the comic yourself, please do. There's a link in the description below to the comic, as well as go and support JoJo's Ko-fi if you can. If not, understandable. Also, I stream every day, so if you guys want to see that and hang out, link is also in the description below. But until next time, bye-bye! Okay, so for our secret ending bit, the Warriors has never been inside a dungeon. I cannot wait to see who gets teamed up with him in the upcoming chapters. It can go so well or so poorly. I'm so excited. Alright, that is all. I'll see you guys all next time for Wild's video for our final episode. Woo, let's go! Bye-bye!